good to meet you in person. Yesterday, first time I've talked to you, but I'm excited to learn more about what Launch Minnesota does. So maybe you can hop into an intro and tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the quick flyover. Most of my career was big corporate. So actually I got to a point where I was running strategy and M&A for about a $10 billion company or a $10 billion business locally. And when I got that job, I got oh yeah, by the way, can you do this too conversation? And it was around an incubator that this business was starting. It was about a $10 to $12 million annual budget to invest in non-core growth opportunities. The lesson for me was, I always wanted to be in that kind of strategy M&A space. What I found later was that incubator thing was the cool part of the job. I found myself, as I went through my career after that, always chasing that kind of feeling, that being a part of really trying to create new things. As a result, one of the things Jamie talked about was that you probably wouldn't want him running your startup. Similarly to that, I got into some operational jobs. I'm probably not the guy to run your business. I did a few of those that were okay, but the passion was really around the new things. So you've heard the term, you can't go home again. I found myself always chasing that. To that end, I began teaching entrepreneurship and innovation at a couple local universities, working with a business advisory group here at University of Minnesota, who's chartered to launch about 20, 25 companies a year at University of Technology, and trying to get back into kind of the startup world. About a year ago, I found out about Launch Minnesota. It's part of the state of Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. And the only charter there is to help support and build out the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in Minnesota. So when I found out about that, I was like, put that right into my veins. I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Rolled into it about a year ago, and it's been kind of a fantastic ride getting to work with entrepreneurs all over the state, try to connect them with resources and the people. I see a number of them here. We've got Medical Alley, obviously, Bobby, Lois is over here, Pat Dillon from MNSBIR, people whose only drive is to help entrepreneurs through that journey to success. So it's been really rewarding in doing it.
Well, I'm so happy you're here. And you mentioned those names and I get a big smile. Pat, and I got to meet Lois, Bobby. We have some real talent in this state in technology. Bobby and I were talking about what maybe some of the barriers to the early stage companies are in Minnesota. And I'll tell you, we are flyover country. We are a thriving, especially MedTech environment. I would say the densest, the best in the world, possibly. It's arguable. Additionally, we have 2 top 10 NIH-funded academic medical research facilities in Mayo Clinic and the University of Minnesota. And I've raised in this environment. And Minnesota has a tough early stage, I believe, ecosystem for getting funded. And Bobby, asked me why I think that. And I told her because we're all Scandinavians. And we just don't, Minnesota was settled by that part of Europe and we kind of keep to ourselves. But we've got a great story to tell. And I would love for you to expand upon this. And it'd be great to get the data out there. One, our valuations are somewhere about 50% of what you see on the coast, right? So you're going to buy in at a better price. The data that's coming out of our academic research entities and the support they bring is going to make us go a little faster, I think. We have less turnover. And when funds exit, they exit at a higher multiple. Talk to us about why maybe that early stage environment is not as dynamic as some other markets, and what are we going to do about it? That's the next part of it. Yes.
One, the access to capital thing, that is in all the research, the number one barrier to an entrepreneur. So it's not unique here, but I do think it's exaggerated here. I think your point's right. A few of the things we're trying to do at the state is work with some of the ecosystem, but also try to break down the barriers to capital. And there are a couple of things we do specifically there. We do direct innovation grants, this isn't like game-changing funding for a mid to late stage startup, but for an early stage, like a pre-seed or seed, it can make a difference. And what we found since launch was started back in 2019, we've issued about $8 million in grants across different sectors, but about a third in life sciences and healthcare. Those companies have gone on to raise over $150 million in post-award capital, so about $20 for every dollar of grant funding. In addition, we try to draw connections between our founders and venture capital, both local angels and VCs, but also out of state, through online pitch events, through other ways to connect. So we're trying to break down those barriers. But in addition, what we're trying to do is connect. We've got kind of a unique ecosystem here in that we do have University of Minnesota and Mayo, but we've got a strategic portfolio that is probably unrivaled from a per capita basis anyway. I think 38 companies with $1 billion in revenue are based here. In the healthcare space, you've got largest payer in the world. You got largest med device company. You just got this richness of an ecosystem there that if we can break down some of the barriers, as Jamie mentioned, on data, on workforce, on driving more of a streamlined incubation process here, we think we can really change the game in MedTech for startups. And that's a big part of what this whole coalition around MedTech 3.0 has been working on for the last year or so.
So let's talk about that. And we're hearing about Minnesota, and some of you don't live in Minnesota, but guys like Rob, people like Bobby are inviting us to get more involved in their global initiatives. And MedTech 3.0 is something that is really important to us. We weren't chosen for the first round of funding. What's the challenge moving forward? Tell us a little bit about MedTech 3.0 and how are we going to pursue it in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So, the quick flyover there, just to get you caught up in the event that everybody hasn't heard about it. Federal government went through kind of a tech hub selection process, kind of a broad-based bake-off. Maybe 35 regions submitted first round grant applications. Minnesota was down-selected as a kind of an anointed a tech hub for smart MedTech. In the most subsequent round, we were not awarded federal funding. But really, when we looked at what we wanted to do and the amount of funding that was coming from the federal government, it was really kind of seed funding. It was to begin this process. And you hear folks like Jeff Martha, who's been so instrumental to driving the coalition, and Greater MSP, Peter Frosch and Matt Lewis. We're going forward regardless. And we're already advancing on each of the sub-projects around workforce, around capital, around data, and around our incubator process to make this thing happen just in a potentially non-funded from the federal government way. So the ask for anybody here who happens to be a founder or knows founders in the MedTech space here or around the world is get connected with us at launch, get connected with Medical Alley. We can get you onboarded into the system and really try to help you navigate that process and the resources we're trying to put together.
Well, Rob, thanks so much for being here. Let's give Rob a round of applause, please.